Well, now they've got a 10th album out. It's called Elegantly Wasted, and in some respects, for INXS, it's a return to their musical roots. Let's go in and meet the band. Okay, boys, let's start with studio album number 10, Elegantly Wasted. Yes. How much was Elegantly Wasted like anything INXS might have done, say, in the early 80s as opposed to the early 90s, certainly in terms of the approach to the recording?
Well, I don't know, actually. In some ways, it's pretty similar to some of the earlier albums we made, by definition, the fact that it was made very quickly, which means it was, I suppose, cheap. But for different reasons, we made the first ones that way and this way.
Sure, yeah.
You know, the main thing, I guess, is just keeping the attitude on the record in a way, and just, you know, Andrew and I, when we wrote the album, we spent about 9 months writing it, I think, all up, and, you know, just casually, which I don't think we've ever done, really, you know.
Not since we were kids, probably,
yeah.
even. Just
we were in the garage together.
Take some of the pressure off it, you know. Sometimes I think, especially with the nature of the business, you tend to think you have to overdo it all, and we work so fast a lot of the time that we were capturing things, and then we wouldn't fool with them too much. We'd say, well, that's just what it is. And I think that's good, and separates a lot of what we were doing, actually, which is, I think, it's very different in some ways to what we've been doing, say, 7 years ago.
Yeah.
Where we were really, you know,
tour
albums,
video.
In construction of the music, we'd be pulling things apart, and to the nth degree, and putting them together.
Yeah.
Whereas I felt what we were really doing this time was much more immediate and having confidence in the little things, and saying, well, we'll let that.
That's that.
That's that. You know?
Do you think, though, also, because there's been a longer gap between this studio album and, say, a last studio album, that therefore there's time also in that amount of time to take stock, and in taking stock you realised, wait a minute, hold on, why do we have to do an album like that, and that? Why do we have to have expectations? Why do we have to have pressure? Why can't we just do it?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Oh, sorry, that's the question, have I?
Yeah, you have. That's good. Thank you. Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, in fact, that's what happens, is you kind of, with a bit of time, you kind of realise, in some ways, you get a bit of perspective on all your previous work, and you can get back some distance from it and sort of say, well, you know, that was good and that was good, and let's put a bit more of that on the album, but, you know, keep it fresh, you know.
Do you think even musically that in just a period, say, between about 87 and 92, that you were just too busy being INXS and what other people maybe expected INXS to be because of the great success of Cake, and you went, why can't we just be musicians?
I don't know. I think we've always sort of basically been whatever we are at the time, but I think it's more that you don't get the time to just like we said just then, you know, just the time to reflect, and the time to actually just call each other and go, oh, do you want to get together this weekend? It becomes an incredible luxury, and you are in the middle of, you know, music, it's freedom, man, and all that, and actually it's not. It's a wolf in sheep's clothing, you know. You actually get, the main problem is that you get onto this train, and the juggernaut takes off, and off you go, and like you were saying, 87, you know, Kick went off, and then it's like, wow, back to studio, and around it goes it went for a while. An album every 18 months, I think, from there on after, till this one.
And what about the idea of just being you guys yourselves? There's no producer this time around.
Yes, there was a producer, but it was Bruce Fairbairn and then Tom Lord-Alge.
Was he there from like beginning to end? Like?
No, he was there. He was there actually for the band bit.
Right.
You know, and he's great because we needed somebody who could, you know, there's not many guys around these days that actually know how to deal with bands, and he's very experienced with that, and he was good. You know, he's the first guy who's ever told me to put the coffee cup down.
Right. Yeah.
Go in the studio. Yes, Mr. Fairbairn. So, you know, that was good. We did the album, basically tracks in 8 days, 16 tracks in 8 days. So that's what we wanted, you know, bang, 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 bang.
Like when people say they need to sort of do this reinvention or reconstruction or deconstruction or to change musically, do you think that kind of change sometimes is a bit overrated?
I think there's a big difference between reinvention and it's semantics. You know, there's a big difference between reinvention and just keeping up with what you think is trendy that month.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and you got to be really careful with that. Really careful with that.
Well,
I mean, the more now you are, the more then you'll be.
That's right. And also, you've got to have,
You know
to
what I mean?
a certain degree, you've got to also know what the difference is between who you are and what your music is and what's changing in the world and how relevant that is. You know, that's a very difficult area to get into.
Trade-off.
Yeah, that's right. Because you can't not have faith in yourself. You have to say, we think we're good at this particular style of music, and then you just have faith in that.
Yeah, I think
but be aware of where that sits in the way the world's changing in its music.
I think it's a genre thing. You know, if you have your own, we kind of helped pioneer the hybrid thing. You know, that kind of take a bit from whatever's in the fridge, let's make dinner with it. You know, and we're sort of proud of that. And there's a few other bands that did. Chili Peppers did it. That sort of rock and funk, and they're a more extreme version of it, or a different version of it. And so for us, we've been able to, you know, in some ways we've got to be responsible to our own little niche. And at the same time, we're always interested in moving ahead or keeping it fresh. So it's a weird balancing act with us when we get it right.
Well, you know the old cliche of paying your dues, and the British one is going up the M1 in the transit van with the guitar in the back, and Eric Clapton did it, and millions of others who are famous now didn't, and they never toured, and they never played live, and they can still sell millions of records now. Isn't that terrible compared to the real way of doing it? You did it the real way, okay? Without a doubt, you did it the real way.
It was the only way, actually.
Well, it was the only way at the time, sure. But do you think you took a long time to be good? Do you think you were pretty lousy maybe at the front?
Yeah, I thought we were pretty crap.
A lot of people around now, the way they do it, they get one shot at it, is my point.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. There's no...
Well, I don't think that's good, though.
I think it's terrible.
It's terrible. It must be so... It's terrifying for a young band because it's so make or break, and there's not enough time. They don't say, well, you know, these guys, they've got some talent there, just needs to sort of be nourished, you know, and let them roll out over a few albums, and then there's the holy grail at the end, you know. You know, for us, our first two albums were just a complete chaotic nightmare. You know, we were just fumbling in the dark trying to find it, but thank God we could.
But that's all part of it.
Well, to me, there's a dual answer to what the question you just put to us, because you asked us, did you think we were dreadful when we started? Recording-wise, yeah. But I don't think we were live-wise. And I think our live shows, even from when we very first started, we were cutting our teeth always in places where the age to get into for drinking laws was always above 18. And it wasn't until we started going to... That's right. And it wasn't so we started going to America, and we had this teen thing that I think that was just ironically around the same time we started to hone our craft in recording studios. But live, we always drew lots of people to our concerts. And I think that's where I have to say that I don't think we were crap live. Maybe some of our early recordings weren't that great.
There's one thing about INXS people have said in the past, and that is that a lot of bands are very focused. INXS or not, you're six guys pulling apart, and that's the best thing about you. That's what gives you your strength.
Agreed. Well, I think we're very organic. And as much as half of our success has been being in completely the wrong place at the wrong time, half the time, instead of deliberately being sneaky enough to plan ourselves, you know, and in a certain way that's been our saving grace. And also being Australians, just for a minute, the difference is, because I know you mentioned U2 before, I think the difference is I've just lived in England for almost 5 years. I've just moved back to Australia personally. I know now that when you're in Australia and it's a small population, you think a certain way. You take the world on in a certain way. When you're living here and you're part, because let's face it, England, well, Europe in particular, Europe and North America are whatever is the focus, the greater focus of the music business. If you come from anywhere outside that domain, you don't see it the same way. It's a separate reality. It's a separate reality completely. And positioning yourself to always be hip in the right place at the right time, I tell you, it's virtually impossible because you're doing it from a different social, cultural angle. And that, in some ways, has been really good for us because we've wandered around, sometimes at the right time.
You still don't care.
But to a certain degree, it's also helped our longevity as a group because I don't know why, I can't even explain it. It's been organic.
There is a level at which some people see you as being famous for being famous. There's a lot of people who know exactly who you are but don't know anything about INXS. They don't know anything about music either, you know? But they know who you are. So do you find that the idea of being famous for being famous to some people is kind of surreal in some ways. It's got just like, it's even more bizarre than any of the sort of happenings after, say, Kick. More bizarre than the INXS happenings from 87 to 89.
Yeah, I'm not, because I do find it surreal. I mean, I find it like the Twilight Zone sometimes, especially lately. I think not being one that is cynically harbored that kind of personality cult. You know, I haven't coveted the tabloids or anything, or you know, or all those magazines. I haven't done that kind of groundwork. I don't lunch with them. I don't kiss their ass. You know, in fact, I did quite the opposite, half of them. So, but no matter what, that actually excites them, and you can't win. You know, you can't. So the worst part is you lose control of perception of you, and you know, people. You know, it's strange to be dehumanized and put into a box, and you become useful to someone else. But it's got nothing to do with music.
Yeah.
You know, nothing to do with what I've done for 20 years, and that I find heartbreaking at times. You know.
But at what point do you lose your temper, or do you say, no, it's just another stupid story?
If the tabloids are the new are the new moral adjudicators of our lives, and I don't have any respect for them, because the pseudo morality is terrifying. You know, you've got a generation of people that are looking to them for their morality. Well, that's not good for this country, and that means the courts have lost control. It means society has lost control of what's right and wrong. And in that sense, then I say, psst, you know, I don't want to be a part of your status quo, if that's what it is. I'd rather be Bonnie and Clyde any day.
I heard a youth worker say something interesting the other day, that he was appealing to the future and saying that the family, we look at families these days as something, you know, the moral strengths of marriage or whatever these institutions are. People are debating the value of these things, but the reality is people will continue to have children, and people will continue to love each other within those families, regardless of what you call limitations within those families, and the family is going to bear the brunt of all this change.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that is the bottom line.
Finally, on that one, do you find that some people like just have it wrong about all this kind of thing? I mean, for instance, there's the example that you have used somewhere is something to do with, or somebody has mentioned something to do with the Spice Girls and all this sort of like girl power and all this sort of thing, you know? If they really knew what girl power was, which could stay a few years and grow into woman power and lady power, whatever, then you'd find that like the Spice Girls would be wilting under what Paula does, for instance, or what she has had to go through.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You got to remember, you know, there's a price to be paid in certain societies for anything, you know? And especially if you're clever or whatever it may be, and you will pay the price, you know, if you don't toe the line, you know. And I must say, in all honesty, all I found overall in British society is there seems to be a great lack of love, you know, for women. There is a sort of inbuilt terror.
But what about the paranoia of the things? Does it ever make you so, like, just go so crazy, or does it get to the point now where it actually doesn't matter anymore? And INXS have a new album out, and you're ready with something else now, and you're back with the lads, and you've everything else.
Oh, no, that's how we feel. I mean, I feel, you know, was it Rock and Roll's The Great Revenge? You know, I feel, you know, the band is really strong, and I feel very tight, and you know, you got to get back to, the thing is, you got to get back to doing what you do and not be a part of someone else making bucks out of you, you know. And you know, that's the way the whole band feels, you know.
When you bopped a photographer and had to pay 20 grand, was that about the best 20 grand you ever spent?
Yeah, I guess so. You know, the judge is not, I'm not supposed to say that in front of the judge, but you know, fine with me. Yeah.
when it comes to being fathers or whatever, like what kind of a, like your parents were pretty hip, weren't they? They were kind of cool people, you know? They were, well, they were, weren't they?
Yeah.
I mean, like your father and your mother. Your mother was makeup artist, your father was what exactly?
Yeah.
His dad is groovy.
Groovy still, yeah.
Absolutely.
The groover.
Yeah.
And when they broke up when you were 18 or whatever age it was, or 10 or
15,
15, whatever, was that a bad scene, or was it really, really difficult, or was it on the cards? Was it okay?
It was unusual. It was odd, but I mean, I guess it always is. No, I actually, to be honest, I was kind of happy for them to actually find, you know, that's what they needed to do, rather than, you know, I don't believe that to continue would have been good for anyone.
Yeah.
It's not a good atmosphere.
Yeah.
For years on end.
And what about all those early years? Like, I mean, from Australia.
I mean, they're really
Hong Kong.
happy now, so I
Sure.
can see them now, and I just go, well, thank God. You know,
Yeah.
That's great. You know.
Yeah.
And that's what it's about. You know, that's what you're looking for, is the ability to. You know, it's one life.
Sure. As regards, say, extracurricular activities that you might have been able to get involved in musically in the last few years, what have you both done?
Ooh, what have you done, mate?
Well, what have I done? I've produced a band called Gun, their 4th album. It's actually a telephone number.
That's right, it is. It's the fan club or something like that.
Yeah.
Something there.
Really?
And by the way, it's G-U-N as opposed to gun, isn't it, really?
Yeah, it is.
What's the full stops after each letter?
I don't know. I think it's because...
Poster run, I bet you. Was a poster
I think the fellas were talking about, you know, they were... their ideas on what the name was about, and I think... that's their bag. You should ask them.
Yeah.
But I think...
no clue.
Well, I've got a fair idea, but it's their group. But as a producer, I really enjoyed doing that. And also, I worked as a producer for Yachty Indie, as an Aboriginal group from Australia. I'd worked with them before, but I cut a couple of tracks off their new record called Wild Honey. And that was great because they're culturally just, you know, very...
Trip.
A real trip. I mean, they you know, they're very different. You know.
They've been around for some time, haven't they?
Yeah, but they get into areas that I love to go, because they're not obsessed perhaps with some of the trends that go on. They tend to get into other things. And then also did some songwriting with people. Some bits and pieces.
What I've been doing? Well, actually, that's the reason why I came to London, live in London, is because I was working with a few guys, sort of hunting down the electronic scene and for a solo record, and working with Tim Simonon, and been working with Andy Gill from Gang of Four, and Danny Sabre, a guy from LA, and also did a track on No Talking Just Head.
That's right, yeah.
Album, and track with Jazz Coleman with the London Philharmonic Orchestra, and what else? Oh yeah, Batman. The last Batman, not the new one.
Number 3, yeah.
Yeah, soundtrack, and what else? Barbed Wire. I did a track for Barbed Wire for Camp Valley, thank you. And, you know, the Pamela Anderson film. And,
that's right. Oh, Barbed Wire, yeah.
Yeah.
Jeez, yeah.
And the war song, School of Wire.
Bob Weir was
Yeah.
in The Grateful Dead, wasn't
And no. Not Bob Weir. Barbed Wire. And, I did Spill the Wine. The war song. You know.
You should be busy.
Yeah, so I've been pretty busy, you know. Had a
So
baby.
what happens next now with INXS? I mean, this business of how are you going to do it on the road, say for the rest of '87, then into '80?
Yeah, we're just gonna keep on touring the rest of the year out, and see how the album goes, and come back for more later next year if it's going well. You know, we're gonna be doing South Africa to start with. We've never done that before, and back to here, and then European festivals, and then on to the States.
So it looks like it will be then. There will be a celebration. There will be a celebration by the end of this millennium.
Yes.
Of 20 years on the road of the same members of INXS.
Absolutely.
In August, we're going to do something. I'm not sure exactly what.
Yeah,
That's going to be good.
Yeah, it'd be great.
I think you can Airs Rock or something.
Yeah.
Okay, listen, Michael and Andrew, thank you very much
Thank you
indeed for
very
talking
much.
to us.
All right, thanks.
a million.
Cheers. Yeah.
Thank you.